I'm going to call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ask for a moment of silence, please.
Before you do your moment of silence, I'd like us to remember we had a township board member pass away in Fairmount Township, Mr. Gary Ebert. He died Saturday, I believe.
I didn't know that. Okay.
And like I said, he was a 44-year member of the fire department and just done a lot of public service.
Knew him very well.
Yep.
Thank you for bringing that up. Okay, now I'd ask for a moment of silence. Okay, thank you. I want to welcome everybody that's here, everybody's watching or will be watching. Next thing is roll call. Today I'll be starting with Commissioner Stephen.
Here.
Mr. Culberson.
Here.
Mr. Cos.
Here.
I'm here, and Commissioner Smith.
Here.
Okay, we have 5 on the list for 3 minutes wanting to address the governing body. I'll start with the first one I got up here. They came in no particular order. I'm just going with what I was given. Nancy Carpenter. Is Nancy here? Okay. You know, I didn't. Usually I can tell where you're at, but I didn't see you, Nancy. Come on down, please.
That's what threw you off.
Yeah, okay. Good morning. Yep.
Good morning. Nancy Carpenter, 14681 Crider Road, Bonner Springs. I'd first like to thank the countless number of folks who have continued to show an interest in Kaw Valley's proposed sand pit in southern Leavenworth County. 3 years is a long time to maintain the energy to fight for what we know is right for the county that we love. Development popped into my head as I thought about what to share today. What direction does the BOCC have in store for its current and future residents? A brief glance at what the Planning Commission has been up to for the past 2 years told me that there have been over 50 plats reviewed and at least 10 requests to rezone from RR5 to RR 2.5 across Leavenworth County. That suggests to me that new housing may be on the minds of landowners. Within the next few years, a battery plant will open in DeSoto, bringing the promise of around 4,000 new jobs. If those folks decide to reside in Leavenworth County, those landowner dreams may come true. Those new residents will have 3 choices on how to cross the river to get to work. I've circled them on the map for your reference. One of those choices is across the Wyandotte Street Bridge, which is on the road right next to the proposed sand pit. Commuters choosing this bridge will be confronted with 160 diesel dump trucks on a daily basis if this project is approved. That sounds like a public safety nightmare. I understand that you want development. It's my hope that you choose development that favors residents' health, safety, and welfare over industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Okay, I'm terrible at pronouncing names, so if I destroy it, please, it's not intentional. Paula Jaskania. I never could do that in school. Good morning.
Paula Jaskinia, 13162 158th Street. First thing I'd like to say is that when Nancy Carpenter appears before you a lot, she is not here just because she has nothing else to do or that she has only this issue in her life, but she's here representing a lot of people that cannot personally take off Wednesday mornings at work. She is here speaking for an awful lot of people, so I want you to know that. She's been my voice and many others on times when we cannot be here. The second issue I have is that I want to remind you that I came before you before the SUP was voted on for the sand pit and told you about a very large arrearage of property taxes that Kaw Valley owed in their headquartered area of Kansas City, Kansas, amounting to over $300,000 and going back almost 6 years. The reason they gave at that time was because they were switching banks or something to that effect, and I tell you, it doesn't take 6 years to switch a bank. Right after that meeting, they completely paid their property taxes when it was brought to public information. Again, in 2021, they fell into arrearage in the amount of over $81,000 in Kansas City, Kansas. And they also now own property in Leavenworth County where the sand pit is supposed to be. And you would think that'd be the one thing they'd pay on time, but they did not. They fell into arrearage for $2,600. That was published in the Leavenworth Times in August of 22, August 13. This was discussed on a forum in Facebook, and miraculously just after that, things got paid. So when things come to public view, things seem to get paid. What happens when Cog Valley owes a whole lot more money to Leavenworth County than $2,600, and they don't pay that on time? Or you have to go after them and after them? Are you going to let them be 6 years in arrears? That's a huge red flag. If this is supposed to be an economic interest, that is not going to work, and that is not the way a company should do business. Been in the corporate world for over 38 years, and that's not how we pay our bills. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
I have copies for everyone, too.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Stacy Smith. Good morning. Thank you, Stacy.
Stacy Schmidt, address 17322 Golden Road. On September 7th, 2021, I made several phone calls and CORA requests to government agencies looking for expired permits pertaining to the Kaw Valley sand pit. The only paperwork provided to me at no cost was from the Kansas Department of Agriculture, Division of Water Resources. There are 16 pages in total. I have it here if you need to see the other 15 pages. I've given you page 6. Please notice number 13 is highlighted. It reads, the applicant agrees to provide water to nearby water users at no charge to said users, should their rights to use water become impaired by the project proposed by this application. Number 14 shows the water use contact person. It is signed by the manager of Kaw Valley, Daniel J. Hayes, on January 16, 2019. There are 14 water wells near the proposed dredging site owned by property owners and the cities of DeSoto and Olathe. Many residents in both cities have expressed their concerns over potential groundwater contamination. Why didn't Kaw Valley address these concerns 3 years ago with this written promise filed by the state? Why wasn't there a condition included in the special use permit of Kaw Valley's obligation? Why wasn't there a condition stating Kaw Valley would pay for monitoring? As a resident in the vicinity with a well, I would not trust Kaw Valley to do the proper testing on my drinking water. I would want the freedom to choose a reputable company to do my testing. I would want to personally pull a sample from my kitchen sink. I would not want to bear any expense for this peace of mind. All residents with wells have already incurred debt for this natural resource by installing wells, paying for the electricity to run the pumps, and maintenance. They should never be expected to pay for a rural water line to be laid to their house, for a water meter, or for monthly water bills the rest of their life. We already have cool, clean, clear, and safe drinking water. It is our right to keep it. I am not in favor of this special use permit. If it unfortunately happens to be approved and these conditions are not included, Leavenworth County would be accepting liability if our water is compromised. This cannot be ignored. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Joe Harry. Morning, Joe.
Morning, Commissioners. Joe Herring Surveying, 315 North 5th Street, Leavenworth, Kansas. I'm here to talk about a rezone that's in front of you today for the Harris property. It's 5 acres currently zoned, want to be 2.5. It is a family property, a family rezone. The owner wants to simply give his children the smallest tract possible to build on. We have provided a description of that piece, and he would like to keep the remainder of his farm as large as possible, which does include a lot of floodplain. So the future development of this property is very limited, and that's a simple request, just a family rezone for the smallest tract. It is outside of the comp plan. It is not comped out for 2.5, and that is why I believe it did not pass the Planning Commission. And we bring it to here asking for approval for the family to do what they wish.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Mr. Ben Morgan. Good morning, sir.
Ben Morgan, 12548 158th Street, Linwood. Thanks for the opportunity to speak, and I'll try to make it brief because I know that as you can see, there's plenty of other folks who were able to make it here today. Did you get, maybe you saw my email of the MSHA updates. Hopefully you were able to take a look at that. The good news is in that I saw the packet's about 1,200 pages for today, so it's in there. The original one's in there also, if you were able to look through that. So I sent some updates on it, and the short story is, to date, MSHA's cited Call Valley with over 530 violations. So I really urge you to deny the SUP application this morning. I know you value the health and the safety of the citizens of Leavenworth County, and you acknowledge that past behavior is a good indicator of future behavior. So I trust you'll consider my comments and the findings in my report for your decision making today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Okay, we have administrative business. Mark?
Commissioners, I have nothing for today.
Commissioners?
I just have one item, and maybe Bill can address this. We sent a letter to about George Road, and I understand that the KDOT has responded to that.
Want to go?
Morning, Commissioners. We did send that letter that each of you signed requesting some improvements or dust abatement to George Road for the project that they are going to be doing on K-16 Highway when K-16 is closed. They verbally responded. I do not have anything in writing at this time, but they are securing some estimates for dust control currently to see what the cost would be, and they have indicated that they believe that it will be approved through KDOT for some dust control in the future, but that is not in writing, like I said, so it is subject to change until we do see that in some sort of email format, I would say.
So I just think it's a good example of when we do these letters, sometimes they really have an impact.
And we need to send some more because we got a lot of other projects coming up that are going to be unofficial detours.
You don't ask, you don't get it.
So I'm
right.
thinking Mitchell Road needs to be applied for. We're going to be closing Tongi Road, Tongnoxie Drive down. So
Thank you, Bill.
we'll see when we get something official, and then just keep them going.
But thank you for all you do.
Yeah, I appreciate
you
that.
guys.
Thank you.
Any other commissioner?
Need to thank KDOT.
Okay, going to the consent agenda, any agenda on the consent agenda needs to be removed. If not, Jeff?
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I forgot I was designated to do that.
Yeah, I'll second it. Any discussion? Sorry, Jeff. Go ahead.
That's all right.
Commissioner Stephen?
Aye.
Commissioner Culberson?
Aye.
Commissioner Carlos?
Aye.
I vote aye. Commissioner Smith?
All right.
Formal board action. Consider a motion to approve Resolution 2022-27, issuing a special use permit for Larson Cars and Boat Storage. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. We have a request to approve a special use permit for indoor self-storage of RVs, cars, and boats. It's in an existing building. There is no home on the property. Ms. Larson's father did live in a small apartment in one of the buildings that's on the property. However, he's since passed away. She's inherited the property. He used this building to work on his old cars and such, but she sees this as a good place, like I said, to store boats, RVs, and such. The Chief Smith from the Tonganoxie Township Fire Department did contact me yesterday and requested that a couple of additional conditions be placed on this if you were to approve it. And one is that each building on the property that's being used for this would have an alarm system that includes smoke and heat detectors, and that a Knox box key storage system would also be installed so that that would allow the fire district to get into the building since no one will be on premise. This did come up a little bit during the Planning Commission. These were some concerns that the Planning Commissioners also
That's
had.
kind of normal, though, to have that
Yeah.
in fire departments.
Yeah. So the Planning Commission voted 8-0 to recommend approval of this.
Commissioners?
Questions you may have?
There was in the report, it said this property is not located near a city. What determines whether it's near a city? I mean, you're only talking a mile, maybe a mile and a quarter outside the city limits.
Yeah, so anything more than a mile, typically we say that it's.
Okay, it just hit that threshold. I have concerns about a 24-hour access to a property for storage where nobody lives at it. It's 5 acres. I just have some concerns on that.
Any commissioners, any comments? Okay.
I've always said that I'm not in favor of
Okay.
types of.
Commissioner,
Go ahead, Mark.
one of the things that's a little bit unique about this application is that there's nobody living on the property. Most of the times when we field these kind of requests, it's somebody who wants to do business on their own property where they live. We have had an application recently that came in for, I think, an event or multiple events that we denied because there was nobody living on the property. And I think that it's important to note that the impact that this business would create is not on the property owner that lives there because they don't, but on the property owners who are in the area.
I agree.
Crystal, did this come up? I mean, yeah.
Yes, it did come up with the Planning Commission a little.
Okay.
And it's something that we talked to the property owner about when she very first came to staff to seek the special use permit.
But they did recommend approval.
The Planning Commission did. Staff recommended denial.
And it is a residential zone
Right. No,
area.
it's RR5,
Right, and we still have, I
and
mean,
it's 5 acres. It's not like it's 10 acres or 15 acres, whatever. I went out, I drove out and looked at it Sunday.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we deny Resolution 2022-27.
second,
Motion and a second. Any more discussion? Okay, Commissioner Stephen?
No.
Commissioner Culberson?
Aye.
Commissioner Collins?
I'm confused about how,
I've motioned to deny.
Deny it. The I would be support that.
aye.
Okay. I vote aye. Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Okay, it fails 4-1. Next item is consider a motion to deny or remand back to the Planning and Zoning Commission, case number DEV-22-131, a rezoning from RR5 to RR2.5 located at 21420 203rd Street.
Mr. Chairman, yes, this is a request for not a special use permit, for a rezoning. The rezoning does not match the comprehensive plan, which is the reason that staff recommended denial. The Planning Commission supported that and also recommended denial of this. As Mr. Herring correctly stated, a significant portion of this property is located within the floodplain, which would limit the amount of development. There are some constraints on the property to developing as it's currently rezoned. However, Mr. Herring has spoken with staff, and there is a secondary option that would fit the needs of the property owner. Again, staff recommended denial because this did not match the comprehensive plan, and the Planning Commission also recommended denial.
Okay, Commissioners?
I also went out and looked at this. It's a family property. It drops off into the floodplain. So I don't think you're going to see streets cut through the property for future development. It says for a family. I think this is what rezonings should be. I mean, when we did our comp plan, and we've adopted our comp plan, and it says mean, that should be the zoning.
not
This
for a
here doesn't fit
business.
the comp plan, so they're asking for a rezone.
And it isn't for a business purpose or anything like that, it's just,
It's family. They want to chunk off for family member.
Planning Commission voted to recommend denial. Is that correct?
Have we
So
decided,
does the staff.
have,
Go ahead.
just as a group, when these cases come up, I think we've sort of decided that we're going to send them back instead of just making a decision. Is that kind of what we've been doing recently?
Well, that's what our options are.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I'm
denial
just.
or remand back.
I mean, if it's our desire that this be approved, I think maybe the Planning Commission should be informed of that. And
maybe they need to
Right.
give us more
So,
specific.
Go ahead, Mark.
Commissioners, in not so distant past, the board had a work session and had discussion on this, that when the board intends to override a decision of the Planning Commission, that they would remand it back to the Planning Commission with kind of direction as to why you disagree
Right.
with the decision that was made, so that the Planning Commission could then review their decision based on feedback from the board, and then it would come back to you, and then you could decide whether you were going to, if they again
Which is what
denied
I
it,
think is what
you
we should
decide whether you're going to.
We need to get the reasons, though.
And I think that's what we should do. I mean, I think we're saying that this is a family, that's asking for this, that this is not for the purpose of any kind of a business or for development. It is specifically for, this is a family.
You're not going to develop in the floodplain.
Right.
On a residential.
Was there any particular reason why the Planning Commission asked? It just didn't
Because
follow
it didn't fit
policy?
Yeah, because it doesn't match the comprehensive plan,
Oh,
and
okay.
as you all know, staff.
That's why I said this is what a rezone should be. But when people come in here and ask for a rezone on something that our comp plan shows 2.5 acres already, I just don't think we need to be doing
There's
all
a couple of the
these rezones.
decisions, never mind, there's been
Yeah,
lack
I
of
know.
consistency
Yeah.
lately, so I'm
So-
like, really?
Okay, well, is it a motion to send it
Send
back?
it back.
Go ahead.
Okay, go.
All right, well, I move that remand this back to the Planning Commission, case number DV 22131, rezone for RR5 to 2.5 at 21420 203rd Street.
second.
Motion and second. Any more discussion?
I did want to put in there with
Go ahead, Doug.
Commission's recommendations, but they'll figure it out.
Yeah. Okay, we got a second on that already? Mike, is that any more discussion? Mr. Stephen?
Aye.
Mr. Culberson?
Aye.
Mr. Cos?
Aye.
I vote aye. Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Okay, I've got something to say on that. Item review of the Caw Valley application special use permit. I've got a little thing I want to read, so folks bear with me. Hopefully you can hear me.
Just real quickly, that there's a lot of people that are standing, and if there's people that have business that was with all of these other permits, if they don't have any reason to stay, if they would go ahead and.
Hey, Joe, that's a hint.
No, well, then they can go ahead and go so that the other people
Y'all take
can
care.
have,
Thank
if
you,
there's a
Mother. We
place
love
for
you,
them
Joe.
to sit, that would open up seating for others if they don't have any business.
You're too kind. Okay, let's get started on this. I want to read this to you folks, and then I'll entertain the commissioner's discussion. As chairman, it has been my usual practice to refrain from initiating discussion on a topic, but I'm also a commissioner, and I feel that it's my duty in representing my constituents and acting in the best interest of the safety and welfare of the citizens of the county to express my opinion on the SUP pending before us. On July 15, 2020, a majority of the board voted to approve the SUP application of Caw Valley Companies. At that time, the board approved findings on the golden factors that supported the application and set forth in the staff report dated July 15, 2020. It should be noted that the Planning Commission recommended denial based upon their belief that the economic gains to the county would be minimal, but most importantly, that they had a public health concerns regarding the safety of the Hall Road. The safety concerns of the Planning Commission appear to be as supported by comments made at their hearing by engineer retained by Caw Valley County staff, the county sheriff, and members of the public. Prior to July 15, 2020, the board had been presented with engineering studies regarding the safety and maintenance of Hall Road, both from a firm retained by Caw Valley and two engineering firms retained by the county. In reviewing the studies, I note that the Court of Appeals cited at length the recommendations and findings contained in the reports to the board submitted by Olson Engineering. I reference letters from Olson dated June 23, 2020 and July 14, 2020. Those reports indicate to me that improvements to the proposed haul route would need to be made to address the safety issues caused by the proposed use of the roadway by Cobb Valley's operations. Those improvements are in addition to the road condition and maintenance issues raised in the Olson report. The safety-related improvements would need to be made prior to the use of the haul route by Cobb Valley. The previous action by the board to approve the SUP application of Cobb Valley was conditioned upon the improvement of the haul route to meet the identified safety concerns prior to any use of the haul route by Cobb Valley. The staff report provided analysis of the golden factors that appear to favor the SUP application, but I am now convinced that the current condition of the proposed haul route would not allow the safe use of that route. The proposals submitted by Cobb Valley to make those needed safety improvements do not convince or assure me that the improvements would be made at the cost of Cobb Valley prior to the use of the haul route, creating a non-safety problem to citizens of the county. My concerns for the safety of the citizens of this county outweigh any of the golden factors that favor the granting of the SUP. I do not find it sustainable to grant the SUP given the current condition of the proposed haul route and the safety issues that would be created by the proposed use. And I also do not find it justifiable to put the citizens of the county at risk for the cost of making necessary improvements and repairs caused by the proposed use. This application has been proceeding since 2019, before I was even here. And at this time, no proposal to address the safety and maintenance that is acceptable to the county has been made. A recent submittal by Cobb Valley so changes the terms of the proposed SUP that it is my opinion that the best course of action is to deny this application. Therefore, I move to deny the application for the reason submitted.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion. Commissioners.
Oh, we still got the appellate court decision. I believe there was a piece in the appellate court decision on the appeal. It said about the resolution didn't provide a significant definition of the conditions placed on Cobb Valley for the courts to even make a decision whether it was unreasonable.
Well, that is what the Court of Appeals stated.
So do we need to identify and clearly state what standard the road needs to be brought up to make it safe, or whatever it's going to take to make that road safe?
If the commission were to approve the special use permit and conditionally do so and make one of those conditions that the road be improved, you would need to have greater detail with respect to that condition than was in the prior, now void, resolution.
Has staff met with representatives from Cobb Valley on this?
Your staff, the last direction we received from the county was not to negotiate with Cobb Valley. We have recently received a proposal by Cobb Valley. You've been provided a copy of it with no authority to negotiate. No, I have not entered into any negotiations with Cobb Valley.
So, do we have to follow the appeals court ruling? Do we have to set out a standard and let them decide whether they're going to do that or not?
If you were to grant the special use permit, yes, you would have to set out a definitive standard that Cobb Valley could objectively evaluate to determine whether it's economically feasible to proceed with the project.
But if we deny it, David, it's moot.
If you were to deny it based upon the current condition of the road, and if in your judgment you believe that current condition would create public safety issues that outweigh the golden factors, you could deny it altogether. A denial does not prevent Cobb Valley from submitting a subsequent SUP application. Your rules and regulations do state that an applicant for a denied special use permit must wait 1 year prior to resubmitting that proposal.
May I interrupt?
That is not statutory. That is your rules and regulations. So as to whether you wish to modify that, that's at your prerogative. However, to go into, I believe I provided you a memorandum outlining what I believe are the two real options you have to consider this. That is to deny the special use permit based upon the identified safety issues. And those issues were identified objectively by engineering firms. I'm not an engineer. I'm not issuing you any opinion on that. I'm simply stating there have been findings that there are addressable issues that need to be addressed with the haul route. If you choose not to do that, the second option that you were presented with by staff would be to direct staff to enter into negotiations with Kaw Valley to try to define a development agreement that would be satisfactory to the commission, and then bring the matter back at that time.
Vicki, do you have something?
Well, in denying and then allowing Kaw Valley to present a new special use permit application, I would not be in favor of making them have to wait for a year. I would be in favor of them allowing for an immediate reapplication if we were to deny the special use permit. I think that they should be able to immediately apply and include in that addressing the safety of the haul route, because I consider that to be, for me, that is the primary concern that I have for the haul route, is the safety of the route as a commissioner. All of the other objections that exist to the Kaw Valley operation of the sand quarry is that doesn't weigh into my decision making. It is the safety of the route, and I think that I've been very clear with that. I think I was clear with that initially when I was the person who made the motion, and it is, and I had always intended for that route to be made safe, and for that not to be the burden for that to be done, not to be put the burden to be put on the taxpayers of Leavenworth County. I don't want the taxpayers of Leavenworth County to have to pay for the operation of that specific business, because the capacity does not exist at this current time, the taxpayers of Leavenworth County, to build that road. So that's kind of where I stand on that issue.
I just want to make sure we're following what the appeals court says we need to do.
And what the appeals court, I believe, said is that we did not adequately define what the standard was, and I believe that what we have said is that the road itself, the route, that 3 miles needs to be to AASHTO standards. If I'm not correct.
Commissioners, those finer details of that road improvement plan would, I think, necessitate a more detailed engineering study that has been conducted by the road or on that route. With respect to your suggestion that the board might consider waiving the 1-year requirement, I would suggest that be done as a separate motion if Commissioner Smith's motion were to pass, to try to clean the matter or keep the matter as clean as possible. Commissioner Smith is correct. The county was remiss in its prior action in simply referencing county standards. I believe it was implied that those county standards would be the AASHTO standards and other actions that would address the concerns raised by Olson Engineering, as well as Wilson Engineering and Kaw Valley's engineering firm as well. But that bridge could be crossed in negotiation of a development agreement, or if the Commission simply feels that the public safety issue overrides the other concerns and the golden factors, move to deny it, and then Commissioner Collins' motion could be considered.
Okay. We have two different motions. Jeff, do you have anything you want to say on this?
Well, I think we put the cart before the horse in the development agreement standpoint. If we direct staff to work with Kaw Valley to come up with a development agreement, then we could see, is everything going to be okay? Some things have changed since we made a decision on this a year ago. One of the things that concerns me is the water well safety. We're relying, a lot of our SUPs rely on KDHE to do the policing of things like contamination of the water wells. My opinion of that has completely changed in the last year. So a development agreement would come to a conclusion that, is there adequate testing? Is there going to be a bond set up if contamination was to occur? What's the action plan if there's an adverse influence to these water wells? Other things besides that, the safety of the road is the main concern. A development agreement would find that either that's going to be adequate or it's not going to be adequate. On the flip side of that, a development agreement would do maybe some more sampling to see how much of the road needs to be rebuilt. There's two separate issues. There's a safety issue of the road, which we need to be most concerned about. Then there's the actual maintenance of the road. Our goal is not to let the taxpayers pay for a road that's being torn up by a certain company. Don't put that on the taxpayers. The company should take care of that. But also, is there overkill in the Olson report? Does it need to be a $10 million road rebuilt? a development agreement would sort all that out. So.
But so could second, I mean, the denial of the SUP, I mean, the original, and then
So
coming
I like
back.
your idea
and,
of saying the denial, but waive the 1 year
Right.
application.
Well, what I think is what I would prefer.
Which is kind of like starting
is
from scratch and then having
vote
all
on
of
the
that
first.
worked
we
through.
act on the first one,
Then we'll talk
then we
about
come
the
back to the second one.
Okay.
That keeps it cleaner.
Yeah.
If everybody's
Yeah.
okay with that.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think that's the better way of.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Call roll on that. Denial. Mr. Stevens.
Aye.
Mr. Culberson.
Aye.
Commissioner Cos.
Aye.
I vote aye. Commissioner Smith.
No.
Okay. Now,
Motion to waive the 1 year SUP requirement for reapplication for Caw Valley and allow them to immediately reapply for a special use permit for the Lenape Sand Quarry.
Second.
motion is second. Any more discussion on that?
I have a discussion point.
Go ahead, Mike.
Why are we going to bend over backwards for this company? They have done nothing but been antagonistic towards the constituents in my district. They are a destructive force. They have not paid their taxes. And we are going to bend over backwards and we are going to make the rules fit the company instead of make them follow the rules. I totally disagree with that. They can wait 1 year. I told this commission when this occurred that no matter what action we took, because I was told if I vote no, they're going to sue us. And I made the statement, no matter what we do, they're going to sue us. And it wasn't 2 weeks, and we were sued. My opinion today is, no matter what we do today, they're still going to sue us. And I am firmly of that opinion. And I do not believe that we should waive the rules that we make everybody else when they apply for a special use permit or they apply for a requirement of the county. We're going to bend over backwards for a company that has brought litigation and sued us. They weren't trying to help us out. And so I am firmly against giving them any kind of special treatment.
Okay, thank you. Jeff, I'm sorry, Jeff was next.
Yeah, and I don't see it as giving Caw Valley special treatment. Here's the issue. This is zoned industrial. It was zoned industrial in the 60s. It's coming. Just because Caw Valley is the first one to apply to put an industrial business in this area is irrelevant, really. Because if we say no to Caw Valley and say they go away and it disappears, okay, there's going to be another one that wants to come in there. And back in the 60s when they rezoned this, they didn't do it like we did today. They butted industrial I-3 right up against residential. We don't do that today. We put a buffer in there. We go from industrial to commercial to multifamily residential, then to residential. We also build the roads ahead of time. Before you put in an industrial zone, you make sure the roads servicing that area are up to what they need to be. They didn't think about that back then, but we got handed this map. Here's the zoning map. You're now a commissioner. You have to defend this zoning map. It's zoned industrial. If Caw Valley goes away, that's one thing, but another company is going to come in here and say, hey, here's an industrial zone. We're an industry. We want to go in that area. It's going to be the same issue over again. So at some point, we've got to address this is an industrial zone. It's going to have industry. How are we going to get there?
Vicki, do you have something else?
Well, that was one. It's my reasoning is because it is zoned I-3, and we approved a map for it to continue to be I-3. You approved that map. I'm just saying. So we have to. So my thinking is that does not mean that we are going to allow for us to accept the burden of development of the route. That any business would have this, to me, would have the same requirement. Just like we have developers that put roads in for developments of residential. We have a requirement that they put in their roads and that they be to a specific standard that we establish. The same thing goes here. We are saying if you want to put and develop a business that is going to put that level of traffic, with that type of traffic, whether, because I realize that the I-3 is the maximum, but whatever goes in there, whatever type of business you're going to put in, we're going to expect for you to be the person or the business that is going to work toward developing the road that goes in, that brings you there. So we're not going to give any special treatment to another business. If another business comes in, they're going to be expected to do the exact same thing. Caw Valley has asked to put their business there, or put a business there, and that business is happens to be to mine sand. They are planning to put very heavy traffic and heavy trucks on that road. Therefore, they need to build a road that will sustain that level of traffic, as far as I'm concerned. And if it's not Caw Valley and it's another business, same expectation. But because we have allowed for that zoning, then let them go ahead and put in another application, and maybe they will agree to say, yes, we need to build the road. We want this business to go in there. They're going to make money off of this. There is no doubt of that, and we would already be, they could already be mining sand there. I'm sorry, Caw Valley, but you could have already been in business doing this if you had just made the decision that you were going to have to build a road in order to do what you wanted to do. You made the decision to file a lawsuit against the county. So we're 3 years later, and now there's going to be a delay yet again. That's on Caw Valley. That is not on Leavenworth County. And we're giving you a gift, yes. I'm not making you wait another year, but somebody else can go in and they would be reapplying, and another business could be reapplying and putting in an application sooner than that. So it's fine with me to give them an immediate access to apply for an SUP.
And Commissioner Culberson was right about the road, because now we build the road like we did County Road 1. The taxpayers paid for that County Road 1 to be done. We gave $5 million to the industrial park in Tonganoxie. And now we got a business there that's not going to pay property tax for 10 years. So we're asking them to build this road. So, and you got to remember, yes, they did sue, and the Court of Appeals cited that they could not make a decision whether what the conditions we put on them was reasonable. Isn't that the way that read? That the court could not decide whether they did not have enough information to decide whether the conditions we put on were reasonable. I think that's what it said.
Commissioner Smith, you are correct. The gist of the decision of the Court of Appeals in voiding the previously issued resolution, and more or less sending the matter back, was that although the county had referenced a condition that the road be improved, that statement lacked enough definition for Caw Valley to make a reasonable decision as to whether to proceed, or for the Court of Appeals to determine whether that condition was reasonable or unreasonable. So you are correct with respect to that.
Mike?
Couple points. And Crystal, I can use you to make this point, but I-3 zoning with the requirement of a special use permit. So, yes, that area is zoned industrial since, 1962. But the development in the area, especially in the last 15 years, has been country estates, residents, $750,000 houses, family development. That's been the way the area has built up. So it is zoned industrial, but it still requires a special use permit, which, if our county councilor will correct me if I'm wrong, but special use permit is a form of rezoning.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
So when we are authorizing this, we are rezoning that little area for this company. So my contention is that they sued us. It came back to the day before the vote. That's the way the Court of Appeals decision read, that it was like the day before we voted last time. So, you know what? It's denied. I do not believe we should give them some kind of a special privilege that they don't have to follow the rules that every other business has to follow. Now,
Okay,
you're,
Doug, you have something?
Well, is anybody here from Call Valley, from the company? Were they sent notice that this was happening today?
Cobb Valley is aware of this hearing, Commissioner. Well, excuse me.
There's nobody here to represent?
Cobb
Okay.
Valley, I can tell you, counsel for Cobb Valley was aware of this morning.
Okay.
Okay, listen, unless we're going to repeat ourselves, I'm going to go ahead and get to a vote. We have a motion second, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Start, and the motion is to allow it to go back in less than 1 year.
And in that, do you want
they can
to
reapply.
put the words development agreement in that motion to work
It's up
on a
to
development
They can make the
agreement?
motion.
Well, that's
They can just
just
start
for
over.
staff to,
Yeah, they can bring that back to us and
Staff
say the
forward to
development thing. I
they
think the
can
motion's
choose or not
fine.
to choose to
I think the motion's fine
reapply.
with
That's up to
Vicky-
them.
Vicky's asked right now.
I think so.
So we're going to go ahead and call the roll. Commissioner Stephen?
No.
Commissioner Culberson?
Aye.
Commissioner Cos?
Aye.
I vote no. Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Okay, it's 3-2. It's going back to the planning commission. Crystal?
If they reapply.
To reapply, back to reapply.
Yeah, it's
They
going
can
back
reapply.
to
reapply.
If they
That's
choose to
true. They may
reapply.
not. Okay, I have, let me see, I've got two other folks that were wanting to speak today. Is Mark Tinberg here? Tinberg? Yes, sir, come on up. You have 5 minutes. Good morning.
Mark Tinberg, 16904 Kreider Road. You caught me off guard because I didn't bring anything. I'm flying
all right.
off the cuff here
That's fine.
because I was denied yesterday.
Sometimes that's the best way. Go ahead.
I was hoping I could speak with Water Resources before I came. I don't know if you got my email last night, but they've got a statute where if you've got an abandoned well, they want it plugged so contaminants don't have direct access into our aquifer. It makes no sense to me that they want to allow a 100-acre hole that's going to be dredged clear to bedrock 45, 50 feet deep, which exposes our aquifer. So any contaminant that finds its way into that hole will get into the water. I've talked to several professors at universities. There was a huge problem in Wichita years ago with water contamination in a pit. So a lot of people will agree that it is a possible problem, but they won't stick their neck out and say, yes, this is a very risky thing to do. Our aquifer, on average, I have a lot of data, depending on the rainfall and the river level, 23 feet. So they're going to expose 20 feet of liquid aquifer that can be contaminated. And of course, then that goes into the underneath the subsoil and further downstream to where all the other wells are. So it's a huge concern. Number two, the last data figures I saw on their proposal, it isn't very much income for the county. I don't think the residents now are paying enough in taxes. I don't think they should be required to be building a road to go into I-3. By the way, my parents moved out in their area in 1957. There was no zoning, none. And when they rezoned or zoned that I-3, my father and mother never got any notice. They were never notified. They had no idea that the county zoned that I-3. And I have no idea why they did. But I'm real concerned about this. I know business is going to come in the future. Why don't we, and I hate for some of the people to hear this, I'm starting to come to grips with this. If we are going to have industry in here, let's get somebody in here that'll make us some money. Manufacturing, warehousing. Look at the Bonner warehouse industry. It's almost full. We're right down the river, almost next. So if we have to do this, let's get something in here that will produce revenue for the county and employ people. 3 people on site, that's it. and then all the revenue is moved from Leavenworth County into another county. So,
Okay, I
thank you
appreciate
for hearing me.
Yeah, I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Is Louis here? Louis Clem?
No.
I guess he
Don't see
decided
him.
not to do it. Okay, Mark, do you have anything else?
No.
Commissioner Stephen?
Well, the only thing this week I met with Sherman Township treasurer, and we visited about the upcoming, pending, perhaps, fire district.
Okay. Commissioner Culberson?
I don't have anything this week.
Commissioner Collins? I had a slow week myself. I ate enough turkey, though. Commissioner Smith?
Yeah, no, it's holiday. There wasn't no meetings around holidays.
Okay.
Well, we are getting ready to have our legislative breakfast.
Yeah.
and we're
Is
gonna-
that-
Yeah, we got a
set,
date
Mark?
on that.
Mark, I think I heard Janet trying to set up a date with them.
I believe the 13th
That's
of
what I
December is the date.
And we're going to hold it at the
December
Cushing.
13th?
December 13th.
Oh,
Road and
okay.
Cushing.
And
We're
where we
going to
having
hold
this
it at
at?
Cushing.
It's going to be at the
Council on
Council on
Aging.
Aging.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Their
that's
new
great.
All right, well,
kitchen area.
Let's show off the building.
And right by the kitchen area,
That's
and it's
great.
really nice and
Great. Yeah,
great location.
great. Okay.
Did you tour it yesterday?
Yes, it was.
I didn't.
I'm going to make
I'll
it.
wait till the 13th then.
It's really nice.
Okay. I got down the road, Vicki. How did they do, everybody?
Got us all.
Okay. Take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Commissioner Stephen?
Aye.
Mr. Culberson?
Aye.
Mr. Collins?
Aye.
Vote aye. Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, folks.